first of all, thanks for having me on the show. This
Yes,
is
sir.
big. I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see it. And I think it's not only good for our crew, I think it's good for LA graffiti art.
Early on, when you were actually UNT,
Right.
right?
Right,
Which was a. I always thought it was like LOD before LOD became LOD.
It was in the wash.
Yes. Oh, the Hollywood sign.
The Hollywood sign.
Oh, that
Yeah,
shit
so
was
I did,
dope.
LOD
That shit was super
founded
dope.
in Hollywood, and
You
I
had
did
the
Hollywood
H,
sign.
you had the the Hollywood sign had
It
collapsed
had
and all that
collapsed on fire,
was sitting.
except for the LOD that was still up.
that shit
And I
was
did
dope.
a character of skate and lest on each side.
Yeah.
CBS presents this program in color.
And welcome to the Can't Be Stopped Show. Alrighty. All right, everybody. Anger One, Can't Be Stopped crew. Welcome to the Can't Be Stopped podcast. We're doing an interview with Hex from CBS. So Hex, it's 40 years as of 2024 that the crew has been out. What's your thoughts about the crew at this point? And it's, you were there from the day one. You were a person that, along with some other guys, thought of CBS and made it a crew back in the early mid 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about, where you think the crew is today, and maybe take us back to its infancy with you and the guys that started it.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. This
Yes,
is
sir.
big. I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see it. And I think it's not only good for our crew, I think it's good for LA graffiti art.
Nice.
Right. As far as CBS, I'm really excited about this new batch. These new guys we got in, the kids, they have good energy. I think they're going to take us to another place, and it's worldwide now. You can't deny that, from Japan, Philippines, Australia. I mean, it's blown up, and the artists that are in are very quality artists, I believe.
Right.
The kids from over here, LA, are pushing. I mean, I'm really proud of them, and I'm proud to be in this crew. That's the future. Going back to the past, it was a humble past. We started off as a little toy crew like everybody else. Me, Demo, Frost, Theory, and you know what? I never mentioned this. There's two other guys that painted with us, and I don't even if I've even told you about them. One of them, his name is Dr. X, and he saved me out of a jam one time. And I think he's an old 18th Street head maybe, but he was definitely a gangster. But he would write and he would mob buses with us.
Right.
And there was another guy named Fiend, and big respects to Fiend. He was a good friend of mine, and he had I don't want to get into it, but he had one decision that kind of threw his life off a little bit. But he's a good person. I remember I did my first piece in Belmont Tunnels with Fiend. It was funny. We snuck in there at night, did a piece, and we went the next day to check it out, and we realized, we could paint this in the daytime. So we snuck in there for nothing. But after the crew got started, to be honest, I think it wasn't getting active, and that's where I met Skate at Hollywood High. And I think when I met Skate,
What year was that?
I think it was about 84, 85.
Gotcha.
And he was really just, he was that legendary status yet. He was very humble, very, soft-spoken, and but very proper. And we would trade sketches, and I seen his art evolving. And I think we all got into that little rush when we first started doing graffiti art, where it was just like, I couldn't stop. I would take my black book everywhere. I would go and check out pieces on the other side of town. I was just like an addict with it, but skate had a different addiction to it. It was almost like, I don't know how to say it, like spiritual with it, you know?
Right.
He really adapted, and he really wanted to get better. And after I stopped writing for a while, and I heard skate formed. You know, he actually asked me, "Yeah, I want to take this crew. I want to expand it. I want to make it better." And he did. He got, you know, that first generation in. I remember he talked to me about Mir one time.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "I got this kid in the crew. He's really dope, but he's hard headed. He's hard headed, but he's really dope. And look at him now. You know,
Yeah.
Mir is killing it." From then on, I think CBS started flexing, especially in LA. And I think, you know, I wasn't writing CBS anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that. I felt like, and I remember you asked me,
Yeah.
how come you don't write CBS? I think we met at a meeting of styles on Melrose. And you asked me, how come you don't write CBS anymore? And I said, I don't feel like, you know, I don't talk to anybody. I didn't feel like I was part of the crew, and I was off and on at the time. So from that day on, I started writing CBS, proudly writing CBS, repping, and to see where, you know, especially you and you guys brought it to now, it's a privilege and it's an honor to write CBS.
Right.
You guys really put together like a great group.
Yeah. I get a lot of people thinking throughout the years since I became the leader and after Skate passed away, I have a lot of people have hit me up about CBS being something that I created.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to fix that narrative, you know what I mean? And I have to let people know that, no, I'm kind of like I would call it like the third generation of the crew, maybe. You know, like
Yeah.
if you and Hex, I mean, you and Demo and Theory and Frost were the first generation. Skate brought you know, when I got in the crew, it was Ripe. I think Rennick was from the crew. There was a guy that wrote Kenner. Crook and Thief were the two brothers. They were in the crew. Crook was the president, and Crook met Tren, who was my at first my skating buddy, and then we all started writing graffiti together, and we got down in the crew at the end of '88. So it would have been this last December. It would have been 36 years ago. Wow. 36 years ago that I got into the crew, and I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I feel like I met you either at Belmont early on when you were actually UNT, right? Which was I always thought it was like LOD before LOD became LOD.
Exactly.
Right. Like it
point.
was like most of like Untouchables was like a small crew. I think there was only 5 heads. Yep. It was you, Volt, Mosh, Sleaze, and there was that one guy, Joker, that was kind of in and out, right? Yeah. Or in. I couldn't remember if he had a little bit of an attitude. I remember that. He did. Right. But I mean, it's been an honor to be able to bring you back into the fold. Back when I hit you up about it, I felt like it was the right thing for me to do, to ask you why you weren't pushing CBS, and that if you had started something that you were supposed to be part of it all along. But I guess, you know, things trail off, and, you know, life takes its certain paths. But I'm super honored to be a member of a crew that you started so many years ago, you know. And I tell a lot of people this recently, because we added what is it, like six new heads from the Philippines.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's being that you come from the Pinoy part of the world.
I am Filipino.
You're Filipino. Absolutely. And you were the one that basically brought that chapter together.
Yeah. And how talented the crew is and how tight it is today. I don't feel like I, you know, I don't think I should take credit for it, to be honest. I just sit back and watch and enjoy.
Right.
But I'm very proud and honored to be in this crew, and it's because of you guys why it's this big and why it's so talented and why it's getting bigger.
The main thing that attracted me to CBS, because when I got in CBS, it was '88, and it wasn't like a big crew at all, right? It was a lot of, I mean, like you were saying, Skate wasn't the legendary figure that he is in graffiti today. I mean, his name still is up on walls. I mean, we've got pictures of him all around the studio.
Always.
Yeah. We keep his name alive, but you know, coming from a tough upbringing and to be part of something small for me and grow it was such an honor. And what really I think CBS and its name Can't Be Stopped has really helped me become who I am today, not only in the graffiti world, but just as it's just got, I feel that feeling that I can't be stopped in any sort of thing that I do, right? Like I take that meaning and I bring it into everything. Like if I'm working at my job and the job's tough, I'm like, I'm from CBS. I can't be stopped, you know?
That's awesome.
And I think that, I think a lot of people feel that feeling about CBS because of the name. So tell us, basically, where did you guys come up with the name? How did you take CBS, which was the Columbia Broadcasting System?
Yeah.
And you guys were inspired by a movement that was just getting started in LA, right? How did Can't Be Stopped? How did that like become the meaning behind it?
To be honest, it wasn't that, not that it wasn't well thought of, but it kind of just came out of the blue. And you know, growing up in LA, I just wanted to start a crew that, and had a meeting that we weren't going to be stopped. And it just popped in my head. And it just happened to have the initials of CBS.
Oh,
so it wasn't like I was going for that CBS, you know.
So it didn't mean you weren't trying to take the network and use something of the network. The meaning Can't Be Stopped came before the letters.
Absolutely, because I think it's more powerful.
Right.
Right. Just that phrase alone.
Right.
Can't be stopped. It says a lot. And,
Right.
And you saying that you take it into your everyday life, and you know, sometimes I do too, and I hope other crew members do too. And who knows? I mean, it's hard to think that just that simple idea that just popped in my head now is not only one of the bigger crews in LA, but we take it into our lives and we use it for all our aspects in life.
Right.
That's kind of incredible.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's fucking awesome, man.
No, you know, I started writing in Carson, California, and before I came to LA.
Right.
And I met up with, I used to hang out with some guys, and we all watched Style Wars together. And they were actually the ones that came up with ABC. And it was like, we were little kids, so we were just kind of like, it wasn't like a well thought out thing, but they were pretty talented. And in the middle of, right before high school, actually, I moved to LA, and I kind of left that behind, but I tried to bring it over here, but it just wasn't, I felt like I was alone.
Right.
You know, I had a couple guys with me. One of them was my brother, and we wrote it a little bit, but it just didn't stick.
Right.
And that's when CBS popped up.
Right. Who were some of the guys that were from ABC?
I remember Mikey, Spivey. There was a guy named Don. This is from Carson, California. And then when I brought it out here, was my brother. He wrote Kaz, and then my friend Chris, he wrote Shiesty. When I remember Skate, he was always alone. He was always alone. And I think after he said he was going to take this crew to another level, the next time I saw him, I felt like his energy. I felt like, man, this guy's already legendary status. From the last time I saw him, he was just a very humble kid, you know, and and very respectful, very proper, and that's what I liked about him. And he always got back to me and said, "Hey, we're getting this guy in the crew." He told me like we're doing this with the crew, and I wish I would have paid more attention to what he was doing because it was kind of a genius plan that he had.
Right. And I remember, it's possible that I met you first at Belmont, but the time that I remember more so than that first time was probably the second time, and you painted it was a Indian Native American smoking a big joint. And it was on Melrose, right across the street from Fairfax.
Yes.
And it was before the hip hop shop started, which was started by the other Hex.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so you were actually the first one to paint the hip hop shop before the hip hop shop was the hip hop shop.
That's funny.
Am I incorrect by that?
No, you're right.
Right?
Absolutely. 100.
And what like what was it like? Because I think, you know, a lot of people get you confused with Hector Rios, who is Hex from TGO or STP, whatever you want to call it. And because of his talent level and him opening up the hip hop shop, which was probably the first graffiti shop in LA, right? Like you've always had to navigate your art career based off of his status. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's an interesting story because he's a big influence in my art.
Right.
And in certain ways. I remember walking down Belmont tunnels one day, and I look over to my left and I see this duck character, and I don't remember if it was gold or silver, but it was amazing, just blew my mind. And I read it and it said Hex. I was like, whoa, what's going on? And later on I found out, and then the battle happened.
It hit you in the stomach at that time?
Yeah, so what really happened was I was like, okay, this is the perfect time for me to change my name. HEX is really a hard name to write. Right. It's X's are tough. And
you have Hex because your name is Hector. No?
Exactly.
Yes?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I looked at my boys, and Mosh and Bold especially, and Sleaze and the like, you know, they kind of said, like, you don't have to change your name. You're Hex. My grandma calls me Hex.
Right.
You know? So from that time on, I really just got into graffiti. I started working with spray paint, doing backgrounds, characters, and really tried to up my game, just in case, you know. And I'm not the kind to say like I'm the OG. I don't do that. I'm all action. I just want to paint. And I actually met Hex in the Belmont tunnels one time, and not knowing what to expect, he turned out to be like really cool guy, you know. And then he's not only influential in my art, but LA graffiti history. Like, he's legend. That battle was legendary, and he put LA graffiti on the map for the world to see. And it was just, he did a lot for all of us. So I have no qualms or disrespect for him. I really am honored that he painted in LA, and it made me push myself, and that's where I was getting at. It made me push myself in my graffiti art to where it probably wouldn't have gotten to if he wasn't there. Right. Yeah, his art is amazing, and even up to now.
So going back to Belmont and the battle between him and Slick, round one, who do you got?
Oh, don't ask me. You know, they're both amazing artists, but Slick has been one of my favorite artists of all time. Okay. I think I've told you that. In everything and anything he does.
But on the wall, who took it?
It was really tight, and for I'm gonna go with Slick because I was there, but I think what surprised me and everybody is what Hex threw down. He kind of just came out of nowhere. He really did, and when he did, it kind of like wow, this is amazing. And that battle itself was more important than who won the battle, to me. and the second battle too, what it
Okay.
did for us.
So we'll go back to the Levitt's yard. Round 2. Who do you got?
I like Slick's piece.
So both rounds you think
I'm
Slick.
sorry, yeah. I Slick is just amazing artist to me. What he did on there, I actually learned from what he did on there, and the highlights and the shadows and the blending. I mean, it was amazing.
Right.
I mean, just truly, he brought it to another level.
Right. And both those, one of the things that, you know, my shop's called American Graffiti Supply, right? And part of the reason I called it that is I really feel like a lot of, I think from the inclination of graffiti in the early 70s in New York, graffiti started in LA probably in the early 80s. Would you say that? 82,
I would
83?
say like graffiti art, yes.
Yeah.
Graffiti art.
And we painted with, you know, Krylon and Rusto, right? And we painted with, you know, we didn't really paint with Red Devil out here too much, right?
Never.
But like for 3 decades, I think there was like the main tool that we use is spray paint, and we used American spray paint.
You're right.
But that really changed, right? With the decade, when 99 hit 2000, all of a sudden we had a lot of European spray paint hitting our hands, right? What do you think of the fact that there are no American companies supporting such a big movement, and that the European style spray paint that's made for graffiti artists? Because back then I got involved with MTN in their early infancy. I was one of the first guys selling spray paint out of my spot up in, you know, that was 2003. It was before my wife was pregnant with my first child. Shout out to Logan, 21 years old today. Love you, son. Or yesterday, sorry. But I'm always wondering why we rely so much on an outside brands that aren't American. And what do you think of the fact that we did so much with an American spray paint brand, right? And my reason behind having American Graffiti Supply is kind of to put that idea out there that we all started off with a certain tool, and then we just jumped over to this, whether it's, you know, European spray paint, Chinese spray paint, and I mean, now you see spray paint being made in Indonesia. Yeah, I've seen a couple brands being made out there. Do you have any ideas or concepts on why that is?
I would like to see an American spray paint brand. I would love to see one. It just felt like to me, and this is just my personal reasoning, Krylon, which I loved. The old paint was just amazing. I loved
Favorite
it.
color? Favorite 3 colors?
Well, I like semi-flat black. That was it.
That's
I like
everybody.
Yeah, baby blue.
Okay.
And I don't know why hot pink. I don't know. I always used it.
Hot pink.
Yeah, it just popped.
Yeah.
All right. But
mine was aqua turquoise.
that was a great color.
I loved aqua turquoise.
I miss those colors.
Yeah.
And how they used to go on the wall, and it was amazing. I feel like American spray paint kind of left us. I mean, you see the quality of Krylon now. It's like it's like water. I feel like you know, the European paint stepped in and they upped their game, and they were actually made for graffiti art where Krylon wasn't. We just used it. Right. But I would love to see an American spray paint brand. I would totally support that.
Yeah.
You know.
And the reason I brought it up is because I remember all those battles and all that art that came from an American brand, right? And then I would love to see. I always have put it out there to see a round 3 between Hex and Slick.
Wow.
With European style spray paint, with all the technology that's gone into spray paint, with all the nozzles that are now used, with all the tricks that everybody can use. I've always thought that it would be cool to see, and I know like they probably don't want to do it, and I've even like posted on Instagram about it before. I would love to see a round 3 because so many people like yourself will look back on that battle and pick somebody from that time period that won it, right? They're like, Hex won it for sure. Or, you know, some people think Slick won the first battle and Hex won the second one, or vice versa, you know? But I'm like, all right, like just like boxing, like what about round 3?
There you go.
You know? So
before
Hex
we
Slick,
get to
round 3, 2025. Anyone? Anyone? Yeah,
definitely. I would think it would bring even graffiti art to another level, especially LA graffiti art. I think it would unite us a little bit.
Yeah,
influence a lot of people, especially kids now.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
And with the staying on that subject just for a second, what is your favorite European brand that you like to paint with? What's your go-to? And don't say anything because of my store.
Okay, sorry, but I started using 94s, but now I like the blacks.
You like the MTN, the Montana blacks? Montana
blacks, yeah.
Right.
I don't know, they just pop a little bit more. I think they're less matte for what I do, but 94s were there for a while. I started using Beltons, but they're expensive.
Yeah,
very expensive, and I
know Primo. Why are you making it so expensive and hard for people to paint with Belton?
And I can't afford golds. I don't even go to the golds, but the blacks are I know the color palette already,
right?
And 94, so it's simple for me to find colors and do what I have to do.
And I think they're more. I think from what I've found is that, like, I talked to Stosh a lot back in the day, and I was selling at that time. I think I was selling Cobra or something like that. And I was like, well, why don't you get spray paint from me? You know what I mean? And he's just like, you can go anywhere and find Montana blacks, you know?
Yeah.
And you can't really, like, to be painting walls like he does and doing legal jobs, you have to be able to go to your local, art store. And I think it's a distribution thing where Montana spray paint from Germany is the more readily available spray paint that you can find anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
So, yeah. I'm a big spray paint nerd. So sorry, I had to go on a little spray paint tangent. Right, Just.
Interesting. I went to the Philippines. It was kind of hard to find spray paint.
Okay.
A good supply of it with all the colors. Brainwash is a store in Manila. They have 94s there, and I love to support them. They're awesome.
Right.
But they go to other stores, and I don't want to mention other stores right now because some of them I know them and they're pretty cool. But they would rather get like a more affordable paint.
Right.
Where and it's tough because the sun in the Philippines is harsh, and it'll fade that stuff real quick.
Right.
And especially the artists out there are getting way better. They're getting so good. So I hope they kind of either make affordable, the paint more affordable, or they just got to start getting beige paint.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people base what they like off of. I mean, a lot of people have told me about trains and productions and certain yellows. I think it's more yellows and reds that fade the most, right, in the sun. Yeah, so you have to really find a good brand that has those two colors.
Yes.
And they have a good palette of those two colors, and it sticks well in the sun.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Even today, sometimes the yellows and reds are a little, even on the good brands.
Yeah, those are the ones you have to test to make sure that they stick.
If those are good, then everything else is going to
Correct. I think there's is Indonesia near Philippines?
Yeah, and I've talked to some writers out there, even Meow, they've used it. It's a smaller can, I heard.
Yeah, the Dilton, right?
Dilton.
Yeah.
But I seen some posts of some artists, especially around the area, and they're killing it.
Right.
They're doing fucking amazing work.
Yeah. I just saw another brand from Indonesia called Titan. Have you seen that at all?
No.
Yeah. Again, I'm I'm a spray paint nerd, so I follow all these different companies that make spray paint. I know paint companies that are from Poland, paint companies that are from Russia, paint companies from every fucking other country has a factory that's making spray paint for their artist except for America, which I just think is like the weirdest thing ever, because we're one of the premier countries that people look to. Like people all over the world want to get Levi's.
Yeah.
Right? They want to bring Levi's back to their country because Levi's is the shit, right? But like, you can't find any fucking great. I mean, you find plutonium, I think. Have you ever painted with plutonium?
No.
Plutonium, I heard, is a brand that is, I've heard that it's made in Detroit somewhere.
Whoa.
Yeah, so.
You like it?
It's expensive.
Okay.
More expensive. I think they sell their paint for like $10 or $12 or something like that.
Why do you think it's expensive? Is it?
I mean, I've heard a lot of different reasoning of why spray paint isn't made in America, and a lot of it has to do with all the components that you need to make a spray paint can, and that's probably a reason that you have a watered down version of Krylon, right? But like, if you go to 3 years ago, maybe before like Rusto became expensive in stores. I'm looking over at Just 195. Big shout out to homie. I think that Rusto became expensive to buy, and now most of the spray paint is all bought at like a store like right around the corner. You have the Montana shop. I mean, I've seen in the last like 20 years of being in the spray paint game that more people are selling spray paint than ever. Yeah, because it's a product that you can buy and you're going to sell. I mean, there's barber shops selling spray paint. So there's head shops that sell spray paint. You can go up to Hollywood Boulevard and go to some vape shops and they're selling spray paint because it sells. Yeah, and they're a smoke shop has late hours and writers are up late hours. Always. So makes sense. Anyways, little tangent of spray paint nerd stuff.
Why do you think like Philippines, why do you think it's hard to get them, like say the paint from Europe? It sounds like it's pretty tough. Is it
well, I think you have a shipping thing is right, like so you have to pay a lot of money for the port taxes for the shipping from that country to this country, and then you have to take a big dive. It would cost you probably a few million to start up a factory out in America. Okay. Because you have to get all the right the right machines, which I heard are like mostly German made, and you'd have to order those machines, and so you'd have to find a warehouse, and that would probably be best if it was centralized in the middle of America. But most of the spray paint that's sold, Neon, who worked for MTN and brought MTN to America, he called it the Ring of Fire. And he said most of all the spray paint is all sold on the coastal areas. Okay. So you have, from Seattle all the way down to San Diego, around to Texas, around to Florida, around up to New York. All those areas sell more spray paint in America than anywhere in the middle of America. And so you'd have to have a factory. You'd have to have the person to put up the money. I mean, there's just you could go to a brand you could go to a factory in China. I have some samples of Chinese paint over here, which I'm not the biggest fan of. And you could buy a spray paint can for like $1.50, maybe ish. And once you brought it to America, it might be like under $2. Wow. And then if you bought a 20-foot container, that would be about 25,000 cans. And you'd have to pay about 50 or 60,000 to start a brand in America, or just to bring a brand to America. And then you might have to pay a little bit more to create your own brand, right? So that's a smaller nugget to invest. Nobody wants to put up the multi-million dollars that it's going to take to start a factory, but then you would be making paint in America, and it would be something that people that are American graffiti writers could be proud of. I think you would kill it, right? Especially if it's good paint, good quality. Hopefully one day it happens. Hopefully I'm still alive. I want to see that happen for sure. I know there's a lot more producing of product in America, especially in the last 10 years. If you go to clothing and different components, I wear a lot of New Balance. They build their shoes in America, not all of them, but some of them. And I think more people are doing that recently because a lot of, as we all know, like a contributing factor and creating a landscape for graffiti artists is having abandoned properties, right? Yeah. And why do you have all these abandoned properties? Well, because, what was it, like the 60s and 70s, a bunch of companies decided, hey, we got to go across the seas, we got to go to China, get shit made out there, we got to go to the Philippines or Indonesia, India, Mexico, and we got to go make product in another country in order to make our dollars. Yes. Right? Like we want to make more profit, but then it basically well, good thing for the graffiti writers is it made a bunch of property available for people to go and paint at, right? But it also ruined families. You know what I mean? It made what was that? It's called urban blight, right? Where people, take off from cities because there's no jobs and they got to move to smaller towns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Detroit's one of them. I think Detroit's just rebounding.
I hope they do.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people that go to Detroit now, they said that Detroit's doing a lot better than it has in the last, 3-4 decades.
Like you mentioned earlier, we started UNT, and
which was what?
Untouchables. Okay. The Untouchables, and kind of a funny story. We would write Untouchables. We did it a couple times at Belmont. It was so long. I was like, man, we got to come up with something a lot shorter. And Sleaze, rest in peace. He and Mosh and Volt, they introduced me to they already formed a crew called LOD, and it was more like a stoner crew. They used to hang out.
Right.
And it was a cool name.
I might be misspeaking, but Birdie? Birdie was one of the one of the original heads?
Yes.
Is that right?
Big Chris, shout outs to Big Chris. He was one of the original heads. Lest, I don't know if you guys remember Lest.
Definitely know Lest.
Legend, love that guy. Rest in peace. And I hung out with him, and everyone kind of wrote, but I think this pushed everybody to kind of write. They got Chalk on the crew, and it was they got a bunch of legendary guys in the crew.
Right.
It was over after that. Cab, shit.
Because Cab and Lest were like, I think they were doing Heavens a lot more proper. Like you had Sir and Whisk doing Heavens, but they weren't, in my opinion, no disrespect, Cab and Lest were really doing Heavens a lot more prominently than
they were up there a little longer,
right? Yeah. They just had a better way of doing it. Like Sir and Whisk. Whisk.
I love Sir and Whisk.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
But they did their style didn't go as well on the Heavens.
But they might have been the first ones to really jump on all of it.
I think it was. I think they were. I think that that's their. One of the things that they hit first was the Heaven, but that came from New York, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah, I think they got influenced by the New Yorkers. New Yorkers were hitting the Heavens. And then they brought it down to LA.
That blew my mind when I first saw him up there. When I first saw Whisk up there, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Shit, that looks scary.
Yeah, right? I've never been a big Daredevil tagger, so.
Yeah, but LOD definitely one of the legendary crews of LA. A lot of my best friends are the Mosh and Volt always, man, those guys will go down with me. And if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be writing. I love those guys. Big shout outs to them.
Hell yeah.
And of course, Sleaze. Sleaze, legendary bomber, killed it, and just the coolest person.
Right.
Just really mellow and I love that guy. That's my brother.
Blanco from White Fence.
Yeah, all those guys, man. Blanco. Yeah.
So when that happened, was there like a defining moment where you guys put UNT to the side for LOD? There was a choice that you guys made to disconnect from the Untouchables and really just push the LODs?
Yeah, it wasn't a hard choice. It wasn't a tough choice. So I think they were kind of like, I don't know if I could remember back. They were like, "Is that okay with okay?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's do it. I love this group. Lokes on dope," and we just automatically just switched. It was like,
right.
switching like a T-shirt. It wasn't a big problem.
Like that was almost overnight, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was overnight, and I was really rocking LED for a while. I love what we were doing in the beginning. I love in the days when I love bombing. Like I love the bombing aspect, the illegal aspect, almost more than, actually more than the street art and graffiti. I love
Right.
going out.
The legal shit.
Yeah, and those guys killed it.
Right. And that was Untouchables. I mean, if I, like you guys started in the 80s, what did I say, 86, 87?
Yeah, I remember 87.
87?
Uh-huh.
And then you guys pushed that for a few years, and then LOD was like maybe
boom.
1990-ish?
I remember at 89, 90. Yeah, you're about right.
Right?
You're about right.
Yeah. And then another crew that you're from is NASA Crew,
Yeah.
right? And how did you hook up with NASA Crew?
I've known Just and Rich for a while. I love painting with those guys.
Right.
Rich is one of my favorite people. He keeps it exciting, and then if you've ever painted with him, it's just like it's almost like like you're painting with your cousin.
Right.
Like you have fun. We think of ideas on the spot, and I kind of forced my way in. I even asked Jess. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be in NASA Crew. I didn't even kind of ask for permission, and he's like, all right, cool. And I knew the other guys earlier. We actually hung out before I even met them, and they've always been stand-up guys.
Right.
And I've painted with a lot of people. NASA Crew is a little different. It's kind of, is there a word where you just think of things on the spot?
Innovative?
Okay, just like we would go up to a wall without any ideas.
Right.
And just
Impromptu?
Yeah. So we would definitely, and we would come up with ideas right there. And a lot of the murals that we do are just like that, and they're fun to think of. We laugh, and we almost don't hold back any ideas. It's kind of a fun way, procedure of painting a mural. It's
Right.
different, and for some reason, we've been lucky. They've all came out really good. I think.
Yeah.
And there's
NASA has a great way of the way that they're very tricky.
it's different.
Very
makes you
tricky.
think, yeah.
Like
It's
you like
definitely different.
every wall. And the other thing is that as I'm sitting here talking to you about it, LOD grew into a bigger crew.
Mm-hmm.
Do you enjoy, because NASA's a smaller, tighter knit crew,
Mm-hmm.
and UNT was sort of like that also,
Right.
Do you find that you like being in a smaller, tighter knit crew, or like with CBS? We've got, what is it, 150 to 170 writers, excuse me, all over the world. How does one's, because I've been from CBS my whole graffiti career.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I've been from other crews and bigger crews like Lords, or I was from MTA for a little while. I don't know what it's like to be from a small crew. You know what I mean? I would imagine there's some type of difference in it.
Definitely. I feel like a little more like there's guys in our crew I've never even met.
Right.
There's like in the smaller crews, I know everybody. I know, with NASA, I know your families, I know your kids.
Right.
I know your mom. But I mean, even in CBS, there's a group I paint with, so it's almost like, in a ways, it's like the same thing. I always have that small circle. So it is kind of a smaller crew in the same sense. But I keep my circle tight.
Right.
I keep my circle tight, and it's not that I have to trust everybody. It's almost that when we do like a burn or a mural, for me, what's more important than what comes out is the act of it.
Right.
Us getting together. We always bring food, and someone will bring some music, and that right there to me is the high of graffiti.
Right.
Whether if it's illegal, not like that, the act of it is to me is very important.
Right.
So doing that with a group, small group of guys, sometimes it's a little more intimate.
Right.
And like with the small groups that I paint with, there is a trust level thing, but I'm always like, just don't hold back. Just paint whatever comes out of your heart.
Right.
We'll make it work. And we're all here to help each other, learn from each other. And that's a crew to me.
Yeah. One of the, I'm going to ask you this, because I know who I would say influenced me a lot and to refine my pieces and get better. And he always questioned me on my graffiti because I would do pieces and I would detach from it very quickly. And I'm just going to say it, like Haste. I know that you've been painting with Haste a lot lately, and you do a lot of more legal jobs, right? Like where you guys do a lot of schools,
yeah.
right? But he's one of my favorite guys in graffiti, and I think we've had this conversation while we worked on jobs together.
That's right.
And shout out to Haste,
Man,
CBS, DCT.
Absolutely.
He's the fucking man.
One of my favorite people in the world.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I love, I learn from him all the time. He's a lot younger than me. It's funny, I don't know if you notice this, but when we're on jobs, he has his headphones on and he's constantly talking to people. And I tune in sometimes, and exactly the same as me whenever they have a question, not only about painting, but about life. People are asking him, what should I do? I ask him things about my diet, about lifestyle, and he's that guy that like knows, at least he gives you the best answer.
He has a wealth of information.
Yeah. And he'll keep going. And if he doesn't know it, he's gonna find out.
Right.
And I like even, tips on painting, and I've been painting a lot longer than Haste, but he knows, he gets in deep. Yeah. He's definitely a geek about it, and just the way he delivers it too. It's just it's honest, but definitely, man, it's an honor to meet him and know him. He's an awesome guy, one of my favorite guys.
I remember painting with him and finishing my piece, and as we all do, we kind of step back and we ask the person next to us, "What do you think?" And they look at, you kind of checking out your piece and people are critiquing it. And he's like, "Yeah, it's cool." He's like, "Your anger, you could get away with it," And I'm like, "What the fuck does that mean?" And he's like, "Your anger, it's a cool piece. Everybody's going to like it. You can get away with it." He's like, "And you could leave right now and leave it how it is. But he's like, you could stay for a couple hours and you could refine it a little bit better, and there's a lot of things that I would point out to you that you could do to make your piece even better than it is." You know what I mean? Like, he had, it was all truth with him.
It's honest.
Yeah, it's total honesty. Yeah. There's no, he's going to be transparent as fuck. He's not going to coddle your feelings.
But he never blocks you and say he said, there's things we can do. Yeah. There's always a solution with him. And I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And then he's the same with me. Right. He'll tell me straight up, and I respect him so much. I take it and I try to do better. Apply it. Yeah. Not only for him, but for my life. Like this is, some golden tips he's given me. I might as well take it. I think he got into the crew, that was like the early 2000s, I believe. And I think if you looked at some of my pieces before I started painting with him, and then you look at some of my pieces afterwards, you'll see like a real big difference in them. Because I would then realize, like, it's not about, oh, I got something to go do and making an excuse that you got to go, whatever it was. I had young kids at the time, and he'd be like, "Yeah, you got to go do something." You know what I mean? And I would call my wife and I'd be like, "Hey, I'm going to stay here and tweak out on my piece a little bit." And now whenever I'm fucking painting, I always have that moment where he said to me, he's like, "Yeah, your anger, you could get away with it." You know what I mean? People know who you are. You have a big name in the graph world already.
but if you tweak on it,
Yeah,
you know, and I'm
yeah.
like, so now I stick around for like a couple more hours. I try not to do like 3-hour pieces. I try to do like 5 to 7 hour pieces.
There you
You know what I mean? And some people don't like doing that, but I've really enjoyed it. And I'm OCD, so as soon as then, you know, like he taught me about having breaks in your piece. Like a lot of times people just do the letter, and then there'll be a big portion of their letter that doesn't have any breaks in it. And he's like, you need to have more breaks.
Right.
And he's like, figure out how to have not one continuous line, but you can make a block, or you can make a point. You can do these different things that can make your piece look even better. And once I started doing that, it was, you know, like I still apply all those rules to this day.
That guy is a addiction and an encyclopedia. I went to paint stores to buy buff, and I'll show him a picture. I was like, hey, is this cool? I'll be on pieces on the wall. I'm like, hey, you know, I have a question about the paint, and then he'll get back to you. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but he's in Japan right now.
I think he's in Japan. He just sent me a picture of a monkey at a
that's awesome.
at like a hot springs or something.
He works too hard. He needs a break.
Yeah. So shout out to Haste for being an influence.
Yeah.
What are you up to these days? Like, as far as, are you painting traditional graffiti, or like, I know you guys had a big job that you were trying to get. I feel like it was in Pomona or something like that. How's that going? Like, I know, like, you know, doing those, like, you're doing a lot of jobs where you're getting paid to, you know, I mean, some of the jobs that we do with Haste are just with buff paint. It's not even no spray paint involved, you know? What do you find yourself doing more these days, and how do you enjoy your, you know, spending your time being creative?
I definitely, I love those paint jobs, and it was hard at first for me because we're not using spray paint.
Right.
But I have a newfound respect for you know, using brushes and rollers.
Right.
And there's definitely an art to it, and I applied all my creativity, you know, into that. And I'm learning a lot from Haste, like we were talking about.
Right.
And so now, looking at painting schools, I get that, I have a good feeling, you know, that the kids love it, the teachers love it, and it does a lot for them psychologically, and it's not just a plain wall, and there's a lot of gratification in painting schools. I'll always, you know, take a weekend off and paint with, you know, my boys or whoever's open. We just painted, you know, last weekend. So I'll always have to get my graffiti out and do something not work, you know, where I'm not getting paid just to shake it off.
Right.
But always trying to be creative, whether it's on my iPad or on a wall or at a school. Not that I'm even trying, it's almost like I have to get it out.
Right.
You know, I can't get stuck in there.
Right.
Because we're getting old, you know, and I'll admit my hand's not as you know, it doesn't spray as good as it used to.
Right.
So I'm trying to just paint as much as I can now before it starts breaking down.
Right. Yeah. And how old are you now?
Oh man, you're gonna put me on the spot. I'm 56.
56 years old.
56 years old.
And I know, like, we've talked about some health stuff.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Now,
like, as you start getting a little older, are there things suggestions that you could make to other writers, being that they're younger? I know one of mine that I constantly get on people about is I see a lot of people painting without gloves.
Yes, or masks.
Right? So tell me a little bit of, you know, how you take care of yourself these days compared to what you did in the past. To not take care of yourself.
Yeah, before we didn't care. I use a mask more, and that's because of Haste and you.
Right.
You always tell me to put on the mask. I painted, I'll say about 6 or 7 years ago. I told you this story. I painted a job, and I was in a corner. I happened to not have brought my mask. I put a shirt over my head or my mouth, and I painted, thought I was fine. I think 2 weeks later, I had some nerve damage where my eyelid just kind of went down, and it was directly caused by the spray painting. So you guys have to wear your mask, especially the indoor jobs. Gloves.
Why would you wear a glove? Like, what's the point behind wearing a glove?
Well, you know,
break it down.
It gets in you. You know, it gets in you. It gets on your skin. You know,
Right.
I would even suggest wearing long sleeves. I know kids, it's hard to listen. No, I don't want to say kids, but younger artists, it's hard to listen. But when you get to that age and things start breaking down, I have a sad story about Dream, SMD. Legendary, just legendary status. Who influenced a lot of writers, but he did a lot of silvers.
Yeah.
And I saw him at a show, one of the NASA shows one day, and he was just sitting down, and he looked kind of, he didn't look good. He was just kind of looked like he was hurting, but his spirits were good. We were talking about the show, and then I said, what's going on with your health? And first thing he said, he ate too many Tommy burgers. But I think those silvers, if you paint with silvers, it's different, right?
Yeah.
A little more, what is it that puts it in the area?
Well, xylene is a big component to at least it's the one thing or one of the biggest components that is the bad thing for you.
Yeah.
And a lot of older spray paint was made with a lot of xylene.
Yeah.
So I know like a lot of people making markers, or when they make spray paint, that they try to keep xylene out of spray paint. The spray paint that I carry over there, Tag Colors, they don't use xylene. A lot of the companies, it's illegal for companies to now put xylene in their spray paint, and that's why you have a company like Krylon will have, it's really runny. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's because they don't have certain. There's America. The laws kind of changed. That's you know what I mean? And I don't know if spray paint being shipped into America is checked for the components that are bad for people. So you have like Chinese paint is made with a lot of worse things for you, where like there's not really a lot of spray paint brands that are made to that are, if you can say, good for your health, But Tag Colors, shout out American Graffiti Supplies. That's dope. Only available at American Graffiti Supplies. But Tag Colors, that's what they pride themselves on, is making their spray paint as healthy as possible.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but you suffer a little bit in that too. You get some of the coverage and stuff like that. You won't get as much as good of coverage with it.
Going back to the story, I came home and I listened to the radio, and they were talking about a graffiti artist that got hit by a train, and the way they were demeaning him was definitely disrespectful. And then I found out they said his name, and it just shocked me. I go, this can't be true. And I can't remember who I called. I called the next morning, and they confirmed it, and it just made me think how I really missed out. I should have been a lot closer to him. He confided me a lot with the crew, and he was always respectful, and I was just doing my own thing. Right. So we always, especially the graffiti culture, you never know how long someone's going to be around. So just hang out, let's talk.
Yeah.
I like to ask a lot of writers about their families, their kids, how they're doing health wise. In the day, it wasn't like that. We were just talking about where we're going to go on the weekend, or if we talked at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when the skate, it hit me pretty hard, and it was more regretful. Like I really wish I was there for him. And I kind of heard other stories. It was a tragic event. LA legend. Not only that, like for all of us, he was a mentor, big brother. Really, and I've said this before. He was a really nice guy down. His heart was pure gold.
Yeah.
And whether it was the nice way or the tough way, he's going to let you know, and he's always going to do it properly.
Right. Yeah. I was, I think throughout the years, I've always tried to push his narrative through the crew, right? Like I've always been, as much as I could, try to share stories about how he took me under his wing and some of the things he did to lament his caring side of him. And I think it's one of the things that I feel like I get a lot of people asking me a lot of questions about their lives and how they can live a better life. And I try to do my best to be like him, and just be, like you said, caring about somebody get to know them better, give them the best information that you can give them. I got a lot of young kids in the crew, and I'm always, and even that aren't in the crew, I've had some writers hit me up, and they know about my history and having a little bit of a tough, childhood, as I think we all have. We all kind of got to be there for each other. And I, throughout the years, being a leader for the crew, it also, sometimes you can push people away from the crew, and I've tried to do my best to this year not take life for granted. I had Seth, who's right over there, back from Crazy Town. He passed away recently, and I had and we had Express pass away recently in the last couple years. And people would just start, you wake up and you find out somebody passed away, and you're like, fuck, another one, and I'll tell a quick little story, because Bleak is right there behind the camera. Me and Bleak had we had been friends for a long time, and we got into it. And we'll talk about this more in one of the next episodes, but he called me earlier this year, and he's just like, or he texted me, and I hadn't heard from him. It had been like a handful of years that we had been, at odds with each other. And people would ask me about it all the time, and I'd try to say, give them the best answer at that time. And sometimes I would talk shit, but most of the times I'd be like, man, I really miss that dude, and he was my friend. You know what I mean? Like, we really hung out with each other, like we were chums, And he texted me one day, and he's just like, man, he's like, I've been stressed for years, and he's like, I'm having a kid, and he's like, I don't want to beef with you anymore. I don't want to have problems with you. Can we bury the hatchet? That's what the text said, right? And I said, yeah, no problem. I don't think I made it difficult. I said, I'm ready. Let's talk. We talked that day for a brief moment, and then oddly enough, I was on a job at UCLA, and it was maybe 100 feet away from the hospital where he was having his kid.
No way.
And it was actually the same hospital where I went when I got shot, and I felt like that was a meant to be type of situation, and I thanked him for getting a hold of me, and ever since he did that, it made me feel a certain way about that. It was my time right now to cure as much of, if you want to call it, cancer type of situations, right? Friendships that that might not have been handled the right way. And I think, every day I would check in on him, you know what I mean? He'd be literally 100 feet away or 200 feet away, and I'd be like, yo, I'm right here. If you need anything, I'm here for you. I'd be like, love you, and it felt good to reach out, for him to reach out to me must have been tough on him. And I know that he's stressed a lot throughout the years, getting the documentary together. A lot of people don't know how much heart and soul that he had for the crew, and that spurred me in the right direction. And I just started to be like, hey, if I can feel good and me and him can make it cool, then I'm gonna do that with the next person, and then the next person, and then the next person, because you never know when somebody's gonna go, and you want to be on this earth, and you want to feel good about your place on this earth if somebody does pass away. So I would say this about it: don't be angrier than the angriest guy in the graph game. You know what I mean? Like, have a heart, be open to putting things aside and moving forward. It's a really good feeling. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't make you an untougher type of person. It makes you more compassionate, and I think it's a perfect, like if I went back to how skate influenced me, he also passed away, and he had issues with people that were still on this earth. And I know those people got to live every day knowing that they never got to make it right with him. And so when Bleak hit me up, I thought about it, like as you move in your mind really quickly, and you're like, all right, like, why would I do this? Should I do it? Is it the right thing to do? I'm like, yeah, it's the right thing to do. Yeah. Because I don't want anything to happen to him. And, what if he had luckily his kid is safe and he's having a good life being a dad. But like, I don't want anything. Life is too short. It is. You know what I mean? And you have to take the moment when you can and solve situations that are super solvable.
Absolutely. So, you don't want to carry that around.
You don't want to carry that burden. Yeah.
And you don't want to regret when it's over.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are some of the greatest walls that you've been a part of? Like, what are some of your memorable times in graffiti? And I know that you said you like the illegal part of things, but like you're, now that you're an older writer and you've been around for a long time, you don't go running in the street doing uncharacteristic type of things. What are some of the things that you love doing, and how do you express yourself?
It was a blur, especially the 90s, and I think I came back really strong in right after I had my kids, and that's when I met you, and I really started really trying to do my best art. In fact, my goal was to do a better piece every time. It gets better and better till where I gotta be, which is impossible, but it's a good goal to set for me because it keeps me pushing.
Right.
I remember I painted with Drast the cheeseburger piece on Melrose.
Okay.
And the way it came together was awesome. And Drast is an awesome writer, and he really easy to paint with, and I could feel him getting better as the piece was progressing and through his painting career. That was memorial to me because my ex-wife Nita was there, my kids were there, we were all just hanging out. Drast's wife was there. Just brought his kid.
Drast Filipino?
Drast is Filipino.
Do you think you paint better with Filipinos?
What is it?
Just saying. You paint with the NASAs. A bunch of the NASAs are Filipino. I'm just wondering. Did you think there's something to that you have
I'd never thought about it, but I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. Drast is, as much as Filipino he is, if you meet him, he has no accent.
Right.
He's if you were to turn your head, you wouldn't even know he was Filipino.
He's just a white boy.
He's a white boy in a Filipino's body.
Santa Clarita.
The LODs had a wall.
Was that on Melrose or
no? It was in the wash. Remember that one?
Yes.
It was in the wash.
Yes. Oh, the Hollywood sign.
The Hollywood sign.
Oh, that shit was dope.
That shit was
super dope.
In Hollywood, and
you
I
had
did the Hollywood
sign.
sign.
You had the Hollywood sign had collapsed and all that was
on fire,
was sitting
except for the LOD that was still up. And I did a character of Skate and Lest on each side.
Yeah,
and that was fun to do too. And
there was I don't know, you've probably been there. There was a place that we used to call the LOD Towers. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that place? You would go up by Universal City. You would go up the hill, and it was right above Lake Hollywood. Uh-huh. And it was,
the towers.
The towers. Yeah. We called them LOD Towers. Yeah, we used to go up there, smoke weed, and chill.
Yeah.
And we just always called it the LOD Towers.
Yeah, interesting.
And if you went back, there's a tower all the way in the back. Well, there was lots of tags on all the different towers. Yeah. But I can specifically remember there were birdie tags from 1987.
Wow.
All the way back on the tower, because I think that was like where all the, I don't know if it was created up there or it was around that time, but I know that it must have been some of the first LOD tags.
Yeah,
that were
you're
around.
probably right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I remember Lest had some. I mean, he was.
Lest had tags up there.
Yeah, and he was. You know, he was very. He wasn't scared to climb anything. That guy would climb a mountain if he had to.
Right.
And he was up and down those things easily. Yeah, that's a cool spot.
I recently was watching Classic Burners. Have you watched any of those interviews?
Yeah.
And I was really impressed by Euler's interview. And in that interview, he had so many cool stories to talk about. But Lest, he passed away from cancer.
Yes.
And he lost a leg. How did he lose the leg? What kind of cancer did he have?
I don't know what kind, but the last time I saw him, we wanted to get together. We wanted to see him, and he came out. You know, he had a leg amputated because of cancer. I don't know what kind of cancer it was.
Got you.
But if you ever met Les?
I did.
Okay, so really cool. He had
ultimate stoner dude.
Ultimate stoner, but just always a smile on his face and good energy, man. Les was super dope.
Yeah.
And
you had a character of him in that production in the river, right? There was a character of him?
Yes. Yeah. And I did another character of him last time we saw him. And, you know, he was hurting. I know he was hurting. He had the leg amputated. But just from talking to him, he still had the same attitude.
Right.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was probably hurting inside, but he definitely didn't show it, whether it was because he was happy to see everybody or he was trying to just play it, you know, not showing everybody his pain. Yeah. But definitely a cool character, man. I love Les. Yeah. His big hair, dude. Oh, man.
He had a mane.
Yeah, he had a mane.
Yeah, he had like that curly fucking long hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I recently ran into, not recently, maybe a year or so ago, ran into Joe G.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. OG Joe G.
Shout out to Joe G.
Yeah.
Lest, LOD. We love you, brother.
Man, rest in peace.
All right. What else? What else you got on your plate?
You know,
how old are your kids now?
Oh man, 22, 23, 24, and 27. And I got 2 bartenders. 2 of my kids are bartenders.
No way.
I was a bartender when my kids were first born to try to make extra money.
Oh wow.
And you know what? I might have told you this story before. I when my kids were born.
4 kids?
4 kids.
Yeah.
One of them's my stepson, but he's my dog.
Gotcha.
He's my moose. And me and Nita, my ex-wife Nita, she did a great job raising them. I was working a corporate job, and I remember they let me go. And I remember going home that day, and I was sitting in the car, and I was dreading to tell her, like, fuck, I just got let go. I don't know what we're gonna do. And I told her, and she said, you know what? We're going to go to school. We're going to go back to school because we both stopped. And we're going to raise these kids, and we're going to use our financial aid, whatever we have to, and we're going to kill it. Yeah. And it was the best advice ever. So I remember there would be times we didn't even have a car. So we would get 2 kids in the back of our bikes, actual bikes, me and Nita. And the other 2.
No motor on the bike.
No motor on the bike, just a real bike. And the other 2 kids would ride their bikes.
Did it come with an app? No?
No
app with the bike either?
No, man, it was the old school.
Yeah.
And we'd drop off 2 kids at elementary. The other 2 kids, we'd drive them to the college, and they had a preschool there. Yeah. And me and Nita would proceed to Cal State Fullerton, take our classes, and rewind that back every day.
Wow.
And that's when I felt like I was in art, you know, taking art at Cal State Fullerton, and I really felt my art was growing. Yeah. You know, and shout outs to Nita and my kids. We did it, and I remember even bringing Nita and the family to a CBS meeting. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that, and I think people were like, "What are these kids doing here?" You know, it was crazy. But
where was the meeting at?
In the Melrose Alleys. I think it was one of the times that Mir got back in with the crew.
Oh wow! One of the times.
One of the times.
Yeah, we'll have a podcast with Mir on it pretty soon. Coming up soon.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. And I love that guy. Yeah. And so, I just wanted to, you know, painting and graffiti was really hard at the time. But if it wasn't for my ex-wife's idea and my kids being strong, we were always together.
That's awesome.
It would have been hard to paint. So that relationship we had, and she said, yeah, just go paint with your boys, but we're coming, like,
Yeah.
I can't say enough.
I think that's one of the things that a lot of writers don't take into consideration, that it's much harder for somebody that has kids and that's trying to navigate a relationship with the baby mama, their wife or whatever it is, girlfriend, live-in girlfriend. You don't realize what all the, like what it takes to be a graffiti writer, along with trying to navigate the roads of being a father and being, a lot of people, like, I get a lot of, like, a Trend called me a while ago, and he's like, how the fuck do you do all this? He's like, how do you navigate these roads and keep everything straight in your head? He's like, you're constantly there for the crew. You're constantly there for your family. You're having a full-time job. And one of the things that's really helped me recently is my wife being there for me constantly, getting into therapy. You know what I mean? Having a therapist. Shout out to Rosanna, my therapist. She's fucking done wonders with me.
Talk it out.
One of the things that I've been able to accomplish this year that's really helped me is stop smoking weed. Because then I don't get caught up in my own thoughts, and I don't get start to, overthink things, underthink things. I'm just there, present in time. And then I quit drinking too. I had a glass of wine last night with dinner, but like there used to be times where I'd just be sitting at home and I'd be like, I'm going to the bar. You know what I mean? Not over drinking, you know what I mean? Just having a few beers, but I think I think writers that don't have kids should give their homies that have kids a lot more props and a lot more leeway, because it's a tough thing to do, my kid's just turned 21 yesterday, and then I'll have an 18-year-old turning 19 on February 8th. Wow. And it's like the last of the teenage years. Yeah, you know what I mean? One more year having a teenager. And then I look at Bleak, Bleak's about to be 50. No? Close? 48. So he's on his way. You look 55. No, he doesn't. No, but he's having a kid at an older age, like I had my kids when I was 32, I think. And some people having kids at 18, I'm like, wow, the fuck do you do that? It's tough. And then how do you have them when you're older too? That must be a tough one. Like I see Bleak, trying to navigate life with having kids, and now he has, he went from that dude that would always had time for everything to like he has Tribe with him now. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's your real not crew. Tribe from TKO, like his tribe. You know what I mean? He has his stepdaughter, his wife, his son with him. You know what I mean? And they roll. And he still gets painting done, and it's I guess what I'm just trying to say is like, it's a harder thing to navigate being a writer, being involved with your crew. All those type of things are harder when you're trying to also be a legit human being and being a good father, being a good husband. You know what I mean? Those things. Yeah. You really think things out a lot more, Yeah. So shout out to all the kids and all the wives out there making their men better men.
Putting up with us.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, well, there's a lot of exciting things happening with the crew.
Yeah.
I think this podcast is part of it.
Yep.
And
proud of
like I said into the intro of this podcast, I was really looking forward to telling the rest of the story from the documentary. I think the documentary, you got such a small snippets of people and their information. You might have seen Hex in the documentary with his shirt over his face, like he was like doing illegal graffiti all the time or something. But like you only got to see him for what, a minute or two in the movie, and now you get a full, an hour of his time. You know what I mean?
Which is rare. I don't talk. I don't really talk.
Yeah,
I don't do interviews.
You talk to me.
I talk to you.
You talk to me.
Of course I do.
Yeah.
But I don't really do interviews. I'll do anything for you.
Thank you. Actually, it was Axis's idea that I do you first.
All right.
I was
Shout out
talking
to
with Axis.
Axis.
Yeah, Axis. I was like, hey, Axis. I was like, I think it's an important thing for you to do the podcast. Podcast with Axis coming soon. And I said, you should come down and we should do an interview. And he's just like, he's like, if you want my opinion, he's like, I think you should do Hex first. He's like, that's the interview that you need to start the Can't Be Stopped podcast with. And I think he was right. And I appreciate you being here and taking the time in your Sunday to come down and enjoy a little conversation. Beyond this podcast, I see, 2025 is going to be a real breakout year for the crew. I think locally we added a lot of good talent, like you keyed in on in the beginning of the podcast. We've got a lot of good guys locally that are just really pushing the crew. They're actually right around the corner doing a production. We've got we started some new crew out there in the UK. We've got a couple new members, Stir and Ecto. We've got the chapter in the Philippines. We've got a chapter in Australia. We added a lot of good musical talent this year to the crew. Shout out to my boy Gail, Big Gail in the house. We added dudes like Mr. Dibbs.
That's right.
Who's a fucking dope ass DJ. My boy I Self Divine, who's a Emer from NTS, and he was at the writer bench at Hamilton High back in 88 when I got in the crew, or 89. It'll be 89.
The bench.
Yeah. We recently, me and part of my reparations with members or friends was going back to the bleak conversation, was me and Mir have been putting our differences aside, and he would like to, he's back on the crew.
Sweet.
And he's super excited to bring his level of talent to the crew. But one of the things I told him, I was like, it's not only about you, because it's Mir and he's fucking talented, and sometimes it could be the Mir show. And I said to him, I was like, and this is because of you. I was like, you got to bring talent to the crew. You got to recruit. I was like, if you're not recruiting, I'm like, it's a no deal. You know what I mean? Like, I can't, like, you need to use your talent to bring other talented individuals to the crew. And I think that's a big part of how the crew is going to transfer all this energy into 2025. I mean, going back to Bleak hit me up a week ago, and he's just like, I want to bring, some guys into the crew. And I was like, who do you want to bring? And he's like, he mentioned this dude from Germany, and he mentioned this local guy, Brain. And I was like, all right, as long as you are going to be responsible for them and, keep them in line, and know that if you bring somebody in, sometimes you got to take them out too. You know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of really cool things that will happen with the crew, as I like to call it, level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 is tags, throw-ups, illegal shit, risking your life, putting your, everything aside. That's level 1 shit. Level 2 is painting trains, painting cutty yards, making it so that you might not want to get arrested. You know what I mean? Level 3 is art shows, making, doing a clothing company, right? Like you have your Rooster. Is that it?
Yeah, Rooster Tees.
Rooster Tees. Music, you know what I mean? Which is has always been a big part of CBS's history. I think we're one of the biggest graffiti crews that has probably dropped the most albums of any graffiti crew worldwide, and I'll put anybody to that test. Pepsi challenge, motherfuckers. I mean, we got, Shapeshifters, we've got Ex Vandals, Speakeasy, what's Axis's Downset, Crazy Town, Rob One, who was the Mickey Avalon, Exist Stereo. I mean, we have an amazing amount of talented guys in the crew, DJs. I think I think, like I said, in all levels of the game, I think we're going to start to click on all cylinders. And I mean, I'm one of the last year in November, I was able to obtain this space that we're in right now. And it's been such a galvanizing situation for the crew. I mean, there's just while I've been on these podcasts, I've seen just people come in, younger members. They're, like I said, running around the corner, painting a big wall. But I mean, people come here all the time, unannounced, and just hang out with each other. And so I'm hoping to see really good, positive things come from this space, coming from everybody bringing their energy to the crew. And I think, we owe it all to you.
No, you don't.
No, I appreciate that you had the foreskin to no. I appreciate that you had the foresight to be part of this crew, to think of the name of this crew, and I appreciate the energy and you're like the grandfather of our
Yeah.
crew. You're a young-looking grandfather.
Oh
but
man, I feel old inside.
Yeah.
Grandfather in Filipino is Lolo. You can call me Lolo.
You're the fucking Lolo of this crew,
Yeah.
motherfucker. So we appreciate you, and I look forward to painting with you this year.
Okay,
at
let's
some
do
point,
it. Absolutely, really soon.
And I'm really excited to see where this podcast takes it. And I want to give one shout out. You want any shout outs? Anybody?
NASA crew, the LODs, my kids, AJ, Elijah, Haste, and Mosh and Volt. Sleeves, rest in peace.
There you go. And I want to shout out my boy Lucas, who's in the background right here. I love you, brother, first of all. You're like my little brother. Rest in peace to your dad, Marcus, who looked out for me in the wiring game where I make some money. But I appreciate you for pushing me always to get this done. And I appreciate you for coming here early, setting up, and doing all the background work that you do to make this happen. So Magic Genetics, some of the best seeds in the game. So if anybody needs some marijuana, go check out Magic Genetics. So that's my shout out right there. Along with that, happy birthday, Logan.
Happy birthday, bro.
I love you, Lita Love, and Landon, my family. I appreciate all of you. And rest in peace to Skate. Rest in peace to Express and Rob One and all the other ones that aren't here with us. Having guys not be on this earth to share in the success of the crew. Sometimes when I'm very, like, I had a day it was a couple of weeks ago. I was painting on Hollywood Boulevard, and I was feeling frustrated, and I was feeling mad about some things that were going on in my life. And D-Ski had met me up on Hollywood Boulevard, and I was like, you want to go over to Waddles Park? And he's like, yeah, let's go. I was like, and we have Skate's plaque up there, right? I'm like, all right. We went and chilled there, and I took a couple bushes and leaves, and I swept off his plaque area and just sat there with him and just talked about life with D-Ski. And on the way dropping off D-Ski, which is in Hollywood, I was like, hey, I'm gonna go over to Hollywood Forever. And I went to Hollywood Forever, sat there with Rob for a little while, went and visited Search, and then my boy Ilya's dad had passed away, and he's buried at Hollywood Forever. And I was just, rolling through there, and I'd sent Bleak a gravesite that said Bleeker on it, remember? And he was like, man, thank God, right? And I think sometimes you really got to, like, when you're having those tough days, just remember you're here. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You're on this earth. Your life isn't that bad, and there's other people that don't get to have this day, you know, and appreciate the day for what it is. You only have today, you know what I mean? And you got to take it for, you know, don't take it for granted. And another shout out I'd like to give out to is my boy Skill from UTI.
Big respect.
Yeah, I was with Skill a few weeks ago up in the Bay Area. I love that guy. And yeah, that's my other shout out. So I think that's about it, right, gents?
Yeah.
Good one?
One more thing.
Yes, sir.
Let's plan this up.
Yes, sir.
Let's do a CBS day where everybody around the world, let's paint one day, all of us, and just kill it. Wouldn't that be awesome?
I like this.
Like all around the
But I think that's a really good idea.
right? Just
I think
one day, let's all just smash it.
I think that's a great one.
Right on.
All right. Well, you heard it here on the podcast. Can't Be Stopped, the podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Have a great day. Stay powerful. Anger One, Hex One,
Word.
CBS crew. We're out.